right, England winning by 6-2 against Iran. Now, to put things into perspective, this is the second straight World Cup where England have scored 6. The last time was against Panama. They beat 6, was it 6-1? 6-0.
No, Panama scored.
Yes, it was 6-1. So for the second straight competition, England have scored 6 past an opponent. Everybody thought England would win, but to win by 6, I didn't think anybody saw that coming.
No, and you expected a close game because we know Iran to be a compact team. Carlos Queiroz is the coach; he's very pragmatic. You expect them to keep it tight, keep it close, take their chances on the counter. But it wasn't really that type of game. They were. I don't even want to say they were dominated, but England had most of the ball. But I would say that the chances England got were too easy. Let me put it that way. They created very good quality chances. You expected them to struggle a bit with chance creation, but they created very high quality chances, so they scored a lot of goals naturally. But when you look at what you expect from Iran, you're expecting them to not have the ball, to concede a lot of shots, but I expected the chances to be a bit lower quality, and that's what hurt them then. Because if you look at some of their goals, it was harder to miss than to score in a lot of those cases. So very disappointing from the Iranian perspective. But shout out to Mehdi Taremi. He managed to get 2 goals. So he's joined top scorer at the tournament with Bukayo Saka and Enner Valencia. So.
Interesting names on the top scorers chart. I'm sure over time we'll see some of the more prominent ones there. But I don't know, your thoughts on this encounter. It didn't turn out the way we expected it to, especially from an Iranian perspective.
Yeah, I was very surprised. Not that they lost, but the fact that they conceded 6 goals. It's very unlike Iran. As Susu said, they were just a bit too open for my liking. Their defensive discipline wasn't as we expected it to be. And they never really settled down. I think they were rattled by the early start, and they never really settled down. For me, it's something that they quickly need to fix. And now they've put themselves in a very difficult position because this group was already on paper, it was very close. But with 6 goals conceded, now you need to go and get big wins, or at least one big win in your remaining 2 games to stand a chance of qualifying, because it could easily go down to goal difference. And for Iran, they'll be very disappointed if they end up going out on goal difference, because we know that defense is one of the best out there. They are extremely difficult to break down, and they've shown it in previous World Cup appearances. But unfortunately for them, they were not able to replicate that in yesterday's game. Deserved a win for England. I'm delighted that Jack Grealish scored a goal. And the 6 goals, in fact, when he came on, I was praying that he'll add one because he's my guy, and I was really delighted. But aside that, this is a way that you want to start a competition for Gareth Southgate. His team came out, asserted their authority, scored 6 very good goals. And now they've struck fear into the rest of the teams, because we didn't know England to be a team that will come out and play this sort of expansive football and break teams apart. Now they are using the strengths that they have in a more prominent way. And I hope this sort of football continues. But again, you don't necessarily win competitions by playing the best football. They just need to be smart about how they go about their business.
Great. Let's just stay on that. Let's try and see if we can get into more detail. We'll first look at Iran, and you made a point that they were open, and this was very contrary to what we knew of them going into this competition. Who would you point fingers to? Nerves, players, or a manager who just lost control of his side? Danny?
I think it's down to the manager, because when I watched it wasn't body language. It was down to positioning and how they were reacting to situations. I think they came out expecting England not to come at them. I think that's what they expected. They expected a cagey game. So it looked like in the opening embers of the game, they also wanted to have a feel at it. Come at me, let me also come at you. And that backfired totally. And they were never really able to rediscover their form. Because before the England goal went in, England had shown 1 or 2 occasions that had they got more space, they would be able to punish them. And from an English perspective also, it was very good for them to get that goal in the first half. When you start games like this against opposition like this, although yes, the Iranian tactical plan wasn't panned out to stop the English, at least from my point of view. Had England continued to be frustrated in front of goal, missing opportunities, Carlos Queiroz is somebody who's more than capable of quickly fixing things to make sure that they could move on from there. But once that Bellingham goal went in, it just fired a confidence through the veins of the English, and it was done and dusted before halftime.
So let's talk about England. We'll get into the numbers and try to make sense of what's going on. But did you expect this from them, scoring 6?
No.
You didn't at all?
I didn't at all. And as some analysts have pointed out, and you will notice this when you watch, their fullbacks were flying forward a lot more than they usually do. And that's what changed the game. Guys, Southgate is very conservative, but they had so much joy from wide areas because Luke Shaw crosses for the first ball. So they are using, and a lot of the goals were crosses because I believe Sterling was also a cross. There was a lot, for some reason, Iran defended their flanks.
Came to Sterling.
It came to Sterling, exactly. Iran didn't defend their flanks very well. So it seemed that there was always space in behind for that cross or the run in behind. Because Rashford and Wilson also got free on those sides. The same kind of inside channel that you would expect to defend well. So it's almost like they focus on defending the center to the detriment of defending wide. And England used the space they had wide to punish them. Because even Bukayo Saka cutting in, all that stuff. So it looks like the flanks just went defending.
I mean, Saka's goal, yes, it was a consequence of a set piece, but look at his position. This was almost like a striker's position.
I was even talking about more his second goal.
His second goal.
He kind of dribbled inside and he was just in the box. They didn't know what to do with him. Exactly.
That's
so it was a very strange way to defend the flanks. And we know that England will cross quite a fair bit. You know, if you have Harry Kane in the middle sometimes, it's something that is a weapon they will use. And it's like Iran just had no plan to deal with it. So it was very disappointing on their part. And that's Rashford again, a ball in behind on the same outside channel to cut in, and they couldn't cope with that kind of movement the whole game. So very strange, because if you are going to play defensively and be solid, you would expect something to happen. I guess for the Wilson goal, by that point they had given up on defending. We're trying to salvage
Wilson to Grealish.
Wilson to Grealish, sorry, to try and salvage a goal and get something out of it. So it was just one of those days where nothing went right on the defensive side, but you know, there's still 2 games, and if you win those games, it's unlikely to be a question of goal difference because you won the game. So there's always hope. But like Daniel said, if you get a draw in one of those games, the goal difference issue starts to come up. So.
Okay, let's have a look at the numbers, the stats from the game, and then maybe that may give us an idea really of what exactly went on. I know that people argue and say some of these things are quite retrospective in terms of what they tell you. But I think that it's great to just look at the numbers and see what exactly they'll do for us. So I don't know if you have the numbers, the match stats. There you have it. England versus Iran. So this really surprised me. When I looked at this, the first thing that jumped at me was the XG.
Yeah, the XG was pretty close, and that's what was strange. But because Iran did get a penalty, so a penalty is about 0.7. So they created 1 XG aside that, and they scored a goal. So their goals and their XG match, but England, as you can see, completely outperformed their XG. And part of it is to do with the goalkeeper for me, because if England got only 7 shots on target and 13 shots total and they scored 6, the keeper wasn't doing enough and he was getting beaten a bit too easily for my liking. But if you look at it, it's clear what the dominance you're talking about. England had 78.1% possession. That's ridiculous. 13 dribbles. So they were getting forward. And in the final third, 3 times the passes that Iran had. If you go to the rest of the game, it's about similar numbers that they just outpassed them. But like you said, Iran made a lot of the ball. They had 8 shots to England's 13. And considering the difference in possession, shows the direct nature of their play. But it just didn't work out that way. But it shows they are dangerous and they can't make things happen. So the other teams in the group should be wary of Iran. It's not going to be an easy game. They shouldn't get into the feeling that because Iran considered these 6 goals against England, they are going to be a pushover. I don't think so.
Well, I mean, talking about sites like Iran and all of that, the update coming from the very first game of the day, and there's a game going on as we speak. Now, the scoreline I'm about to draw, hold your chair if you are sitting down, and if you are standing, sit. And if you are sitting, like I said, hold the chair, it might shock you. So the scoreline as things stand is Saudi Arabia 2, Argentina 1. That is the scoreline as things stand. We'll be updating you as and when we go along. So that's the scoreline coming in from the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. Just finally, Daniel, just to close this out, I don't know why you're smirking. You have a smirk on your face. Susu made mention of the goalkeeper. Iran lost their first choice keeper. Very horrible injury. I don't know whether he'll even be back for the second. But how much of a factor did that play in how everything else played out?
I kind of knew it was going to be a problem when I looked at the reaction of Carlos Queiroz. After. When the goalkeeper got injured, he went like this. if he trusted his number 2 and number 3, I don't think he would have been worried. But he knows that the guy who was coming on was probably going to drink a lot of goals.
They tried to let him
Continue, yeah.
See that he was not, because
Just wasn't
it was
concussed.
He had to be stitched.
It was a very horrible injury.
You get a head injury, you have to be stitched. The person goes down. You can see their big days.
Yeah.
And you want them to continue. It's not.
Just
let's be honest.
Do you think his World Cup is done?
We have concussion protocols. Well, the thing about concussions is it's different for everyone. I've had a friend who had a concussion for about a year.
Wow.
Because if you've had multiple ones, the next one takes longer and longer. So if it's your first concussion, it might take a week, 3 days, whatever. But if it's like your third or fourth, fifth or sixth, it can really last. And there's some certain triggers that will make it kind of relapse. So maybe if you go somewhere loud music, or you kind of you fall down, like, so it's a very difficult, and that's why it becomes such an issue in sports, because a very difficult thing, because it can come and go. Some people can have it basically for a period of years where it comes and goes. And if you are playing a sport, a contact sport where this thing can happen, it can be very dangerous because it affects your balance, your coordination, and a lot of other things. So I would hope that he sits out the rest of the World Cup, not because I don't want to see him play. I'm sure it's his dream to play, but for his own safety, it might be for the best, because it could happen again. We've seen head injuries to keepers, because as you remember, Petr Cech, for the rest of his career, he had to wear, even our own Manav Nuruddin wears a helmet like that. So you don't want to play with head injuries. Okay,
all right. We'll see how the Iranians recover. They lost 6-2 to England in that opening game.